Hello and welcome back to KXAM Plus. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our field trip adventure with KXAN meteorologist Kristen Currie. Kristen, thanks for joining us here on KXAM Plus. How are you?
Pretty good. Got a little bit of rain in the bucket this week. Temperature's not quite as hot, so got a lot to be grateful for this morning.
And one thing I am extremely grateful for is your trip to Houston, because we are seeing all the amazing content you brought back for us. One of them today is the zoo.
Yes, the Houston Zoo. Now, I know we've got an incredible zoo right in our backyard, the Austin Zoo. Definitely check it out. It's a very special wildlife rescue zoo. But in my time on assignment in Houston, I had a few friends recommend the Houston Zoo, and I am so glad I went. It is incredible. Have you been before?
I've been to the Houston Aquarium in the downtown area, and they have like a tiger and some animals, but never the zoo, and I really want to go.
It was really well done. And I will tell you and dive into this here in just a second. I was so impressed by one, the focus on sustainability and wildlife conservation, and two, their construction, design, architectural decisions on how they put that zoo together to make it easier for visitors in the summer to beat the heat. Because this was, June that I had the opportunity to visit, and I will tell you they were very smart in how they put that all together, and we'll get into that later.
And not only are they beating the heat for the guests, but for the animals as well, right?
Yes, yeah, we've done a few stories recently about how the different zoos around Texas are trying to take it maybe a little easier on our friends with all the fur, all the the hair,
the paws, everything.
Absolutely. I think this morning, what were we talking about? There was a zoo. I'm gonna forget, but they were feeding the bears frozen berries. They were doing. The otters were ice blocks with fish and little mice in them, which I didn't even know the otters eat mice. But regardless, they were showering, hosing off the elephants at that zoo too. I know we talked about the San Antonio Zoo on air a couple of days ago about how they're keeping the zoo animals safe in the heat. We've done stories with the Austin Zoo about how their tigers specifically. This might be a little graphic for 9:30 in the morning, but they make bloodsicles where they like freeze blood and ice together, and the tigers, they just that's the way that they beat the heat is chomping down on one of these bloodsicles.
Why don't they freeze the meat?
I know. I'm not really sure. It was one of those things when you see it, you're like, okay. I get it. Yeah. The monkeys are a little cuter. Monkeys had the little frozen pieces of banana when I went out there. And it goes both ways too. It's not just the heat. I remember doing a story after the winter 2021, the mega storm that we had here in Texas, where the zookeeper told me that the gift store, right when you walk into the Austin Zoo, the gift store, they had to put all the birds in there to keep them from getting too cold and freezing, because those are outside exhibits. So heat and cold, zookeepers doing the right thing. So it was interesting to kind of go to the Houston Zoo and see what their world's like.
Yeah. Well, break it down for us. What was one of the first things that you made your pit stop on?
So even just the beginning of the zoo, when you walk in, you see the sign that says see them, save them. And I was like, that's really interesting that they would do that. And while these pictures are going, there we go, there's the front sign,
see them, save them.
While these pictures are going, the otters and the seals are the first thing you see. There they have so many different seals, they have so many different info boards too, and this is where I want to spend a lot of time on the ways that they're taking initiative in the preservation, the conservation, and the sustainability of it all. They put these on their website, and so I'll just read through a few of them. One of the zoo initiatives in Houston is reduction in recycling plastics, and they actually list out what the different things are that they're doing. So they're replacing the single-use plastic items with reusable options, or trying to keep things out of the ocean. What they said was the Houston Zoo removes and recycles discarding fishing line from fishing areas in Galveston to save the wildlife like sea turtles, which I thought was really interesting. They use single plastic bags, bottles, and straw free, saving an annual 300,000. That picture right there, 300,000 plastic bottles.
Bags in those.
Yes, isn't that cool?
That is interesting.
300,000 plastic bottles, 80,000 plastic bags, 23,000 plastic straws a year. those are estimates, but they put those in those gigantic pillars. And that's one of the first things you see when you go through the seals and you go around the back. You can see these giant things that prove like pretty much in your face. Sustainability is important to us here at the Houston Zoo. One of the things that also stood out to me that they had said was they save wildlife by recycling single-use gloves and masks after they're done using them. They recycled about 400 pounds of this material. And there's a different company called TerraCycle where you can actually send this plastic. Yeah, it's so crazy, right? So that was one of their initiatives, the reduction in recycling. The number 2 thing was buying local, especially with the ocean-friendly seafood that some of the zoo animals eat. So the animals at the Houston Zoo are fed those ocean-friendly seafoods. They try and do U.S. source seafood when doing this, but also encouraging others, if you're going to a seafood restaurant, obviously there's plenty of those in the Houston, Galveston area, to really look for those U.S. sourced seafood options. And it's just in a way to protect the animals, like the sharks and the stingrays and the fish population, so they continue to thrive, because we know, unfortunately, ocean pollution does pose a threat to those.
Yeah, and it's big right now, especially. So having that diorama or that big cylinder with all the trash is just eye-opening to look at.
I think so, too. It's a very visual display as to how much plastic they're keeping out of the oceans. Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting here, the creating wildlife-friendly spaces with the pollinators and the bats. This is something I talk about all the time on CW Austin Mornings. But the Houston Zoo has 14 native plant areas for pollinators like butterflies. So even the insects and the animals that they don't have, contained on property, they're making sure they're taken care of. The zoo staff have used acoustic monitoring devices to find several different bat species that are living on the zoo campus, the zoo grounds too, which I thought was really interesting.
Not part of the zoo, but
yeah,
still
they're just
welcome.
like, hey, they're here. Might as well take care of them.
Yeah.
Since 2016, the zoo staff have ID tagged teeny little stickers, monarch butterflies on the zoo grounds. Yeah, I thought that was real. And you know what's so cool is, so I did this, whatever that was, on a Thursday. I popped into New Orleans that weekend just for a quick trip, just visiting, not work related, and went to the aquarium in New Orleans, and they have got a butterfly garden. They're doing the same thing. These tiny little stickers on these teeny little butterfly wings to be able to see the life cycle. How long are these monarchs, around, and
where do they go?
Where did they go with the lifespan of the monarchs too? I had just thought that's such a unique connection, because I didn't even realize we were doing that. As humans, tracking these butterflies, tiny little stickers on their wings. They're not only doing it in Houston, they're doing it in New Orleans too.
Yeah.
But also the zoo now serves bird-friendly coffee on zoo grounds, which I didn't realize.
Bird-friendly coffee, what is that?
They're grown in a way that provides shelter and variety of foods for birds. So something to think about. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things that the Houston Zoo is doing to take care of the animals, but also kind of go above and beyond with the different animals that also call the Houston Zoo home, whether or not they're an exhibit, right?
That is so sweet. So you went to several places in Houston. Sorry. How long did it take you to explore the zoo?
So I will tell you, this was probably about 2 or 3 hours, because I really wanted to see some of the favorites, the rhinoceros, the giraffe. And the giraffe too, they probably have about, I would say, 3 or 4. And if the elephants come back up, I took a lot of the primate pictures too, because those are our favorite. But they have a ton of elephants at the Houston Zoo.
There they are.
They're 2 of, like, I kid you not, 8 or 9. All of those right there, all those little signs indicate elephants.
Those are all the elephants.
Probably the most elephants I've ever seen in a single exhibit. And I was super impressed. And they were, at that time, feeding on the different things. And they put their little food batches right on the gate. So you get really close to some of these animals. Like, you feel like you're right there. The zoo, the Houston Zoo's elephant exhibit is massive. They've got this huge pool and for so many different elephants. And there was something I was reading about how they separate, I think the mamas and the babies away from the daddy elephants, for, I think, safety reasons and such. So everybody gets along. But it was really interesting to see. This was like an extension of that elephant exhibit over there. And there was one part with the giraffes too. You can actually pay to feed a giraffe, and it was like $9. Like super,
so cool.
yeah, super inexpensive. I was just trying to trudge my way to see all I could, but that would be something, if you got a giraffe lover in your family,
Take them there.
take them there to get that up close and personal experience with the giraffe. I think is incredible. Something else that I wanted to highlight, the reduction and recycling that they're doing over there too. We talk about recycling all the time as individuals, consumers. But one of the things the Houston Zoo does is when the metal is taken from some of the animal habitats, if they're renovating or redoing anything, their homes become disrupted and the animal populations and the other plant species in the same habitat decrease. So they're looking to recycle some of that. The cell phones and other kind of devices, thank you, electronic devices that we sometimes have, they contain a material called tantalum that's derived from a separate mineral called coltan. That is destructively mined in Central Africa, which it happens to be where the chimpanzees and the gorillas and the other primates live. Yeah, so that was a sign that you could see in the primate exhibit. Yeah, they're very mindful of, here's, a monkey. Maybe you've seen a gorilla before. This is what it looks like in its little exhibit. But here's why we care, and here's why you should care, and here's how you help preserve and save. With something like recycling your cell phone, here's how you can,
And we all have those old iPhones in our drawer in the kitchen.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I don't think I ever connected the dots of, you going as long as you can with your cell phone and not the next greatest, best iPhone or whatever that comes out. You holding onto your cell phone and being, very, very mindful of what you're doing with it to preserve its life would later on down the road cause them to not mine as much of that material that destroys the primate's habitat in Africa. Like connecting those dots, I thought was huge. There was also one, I think I took a picture of it, of the sea turtles.
The little things you can do to help.
Yeah, the sea turtles and the straws. I think, is it the Galata? There's
a big one.
The Galapagos tortoises was one that I took a picture of as well. Of course, the sharks and the ocean pollution is another one. I just thought that was a really big takeaway with the Houston Zoo, is they're very smart about connecting that, hey, here's a good experience of you seeing these zoo animals that we would never be able to, a lot of us would never be able to see, out in the wild, like a rhinoceros or a pygmy hippopotamus. But here's what we're doing as a zoo to preserve and conserve that species. And here's what you can do at home to help their habitats, to help their food supply, that sort of thing. And I was so blown away by it.
Yeah, it's such a learning experience while also having so much fun at the same time.
Yeah, and I forgot to write down the numbers. It's in my my weather story, though, about how they work with dozens of wildfire.
Supports 49 wildlife conservation projects in 27 countries.
Isn't that insane?
That is insane.
I mean, that's happening in Houston. Houston, Texas is supporting, 47 of those wildlife groups. And excuse me, I just thought that was impactful. Yeah, because zoos do take a lot of heat. Criticism of people saying, it's a very confined space sometimes. There's cages sometimes. But I thought the zoo in Houston did a really good job of saying, we understand that's the perception, but here's why. Here's why that's not the case here, because we're doing all of this to further help the species out in the wild. Something else I wanted to talk on too was the fact that I mentioned they're very smart about keeping it as cool as possible. So in one of the exhibits there with the big pillars of the plastic straws and the bags and stuff, that's actually all underneath this like rock cave. They put that in a cave so where you
outside?
Outside, but
still inside.
Yeah, you're not out in the sun, right? It's this little cave that you walk into. You see these pillars, and then on the other side, you see the tank of the seals. And I was like, that's so smart to be able to have that teachable moment, that learning moment of having the kids and the parents read about the plastic pollution effects.
While cooling down.
while cooling down, looking at the seals. And then there's another picture where it comes out to the world, and you can read more about how you can help save the Galapagos tortoises too. That stood out to me. There was fans everywhere. Truly big old fans everywhere, all over the park. They have a lot of those awnings, big old awnings, next to the exhibit, so you're not necessarily not necessarily just standing out in the sun looking at animals. You're underneath some sort of shade, which, trust me, when you're out there for 3 hours in the middle of a June afternoon,
it's brutal.
Makes a difference. It does make a big difference. And I just, whether it's a rock cave or an awning or the fans or even some of the overhangs that you can go into, that like the bug house is an inside thing. There's a sliding glass door, and it's very cool. It's chilled inside. I was like, they did it right. Not every zoo is like, I will say the Austin Zoo, a lot of it is outside. So we encourage you to go in the morning when we talk about zoo days. But the Houston Zoo, I think, given the fact that it is so treacherously hot and humid in Southeast Texas, especially, I think they were it was obvious to me that they knew what they were doing when they were building this, thinking, hey, we're going to have people out here and it's hot most of the year. So what can we do to make this experience
keep them here? Yeah.
As comfortable as possible when the Mother Nature's working against you at that point.
Yeah. The Texas heat is brutal.
Texas heat. Yeah. And those bald eagles there, you see, they had their little mouths open the entire time. I was like, you're hot. I'm hot. Like I can feel you. I know what you're going through. There was a part in the middle, and it's a temporary exhibit. I don't think it's there permanently, of dinosaurs. So if your kiddo is a dinosaur loving person, they have a whole exhibit in the middle of the Houston Zoo right now that have like the animated, like animatronic dinosaurs, you know?
So cute.
Hot take. I also just read that the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Zoo is doing something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think, is it Cedar Creek? Bastrop County, there's a dinosaur park too, that I took a friend's kiddo, and it's all outside, but it is real cool if you're into that. But I digress.
Take a little dinosaur tour around
Texas. And that's all outside out in Bastrop County. This one too is outside, but I didn't get a chance to do that. I was like, I'm here for the animals. I want to see the real stuff. Yeah, and I was shocked. I will tell you, Esme, I was shocked how many animals were out given how hot it was. I mean, the elephants were eating, the giraffes were eating, the ostriches were all laying in the shade next to the window, so they were right there. The chimpanzees
hanging around,
all right there. I was thinking, oh, a lot of them are probably going to be in their little caves and all that. And no, they were out there. Even I'm not going to say it correctly. A capybara or
a capybara.
Yeah,
those are my favorite to see.
I had never in my life heard of that. So the fact that you know what that is that like a thing?
That is my favorite zoo animal, a capybara.
Really?
Yeah.
It looks like, I don't think I have a picture in there because I was like, what?
It's like a little mouse.
Girl, it's like a large rodent. It's like a cross between a large rodent and a very small hippo. Like this thing is big and it's got kind of like hair.
Yeah. And it has like a pig nose.
Listen, I'm gonna show you.
Let
me because I know I don't know if I send it to you, but I've got to
send me the capybara picture
because like who has heard of that? It was in the exhibit was something else that I hadn't seen before. Okay,
I always see them next to the pygmy hippos. I think they're maybe related.
Oh, that could be.
They have the same little enclosure. They're near each other most of the time.
Okay, flamingos, ostriches. Okay, here we go. Ready? Are you guys ready for this? That's
so cute.
Oh, that is a what? A capybara?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
A little mouse.
And it's so hard to tell, but there was actually like 3 of them back there.
My zoo back home only has one. That's
really
awesome.
Are they like new to the game? I don't think I've ever had seen one. And this other one too was a large anteater thing.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that one.
He was in the capybara thing.
It looks like a skunk.
Like yeah, I'm trying. I literally took probably 200 pictures, so I only sent Esme the ones that I thought were worth sharing. But now here I am digressing again. Look at the eyelashes of this
Oh my God. Is
ostrich.
that an ostrich?
I mean, hey, whatever that routine is, we need to know.
Some extension.
Yeah, and I thought there was like truly all of these are zoo photos on my phone because
You go to the zoo, take your camera, save your storage on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of like photo op moments of those like where you stick your head in a little hole for the kids. So there is plenty of that. There's also this whole section, and I thought it was a playground, but it was like little huts that one of the animals makes that the kids can crawl through. They like
so cool.
replicate it out of plastic, but they go into there, and there's an entire summer camp going nuts on that. And I was like, okay, burning some energy, right? And pretending to be the animal. Forgot where that was. The only animal I didn't see, and I must have just walked right by it and didn't realize it because I know they're there, were the tigers.
I was about to say that. Probably the tigers.
I didn't see the tiger. Yeah, and I know they've got to be there. I saw the sign.
They're probably sunbathing.
I would think so.
Out.
If there was one animal that I would think would be like, we're not doing this 100-degree heat, it'd be the tigers. Didn't see the tigers, didn't see the bears, but I do know there is a bear at the Austin Zoo who lives there, and I have seen them. And I didn't do the bug house. I'm like,
no bugs.
You know that also another thing that I keep wanting to say chupacabra, and I know that's not it. Say that one more time. The other animal,
capybara.
There was people like being excited about that, and then a red panda.
Those are really cool.
I've never seen that, and I was looking at it because I thought it was a fox originally.
They look like foxes.
They look like foxes, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, red panda. I've never seen one of those before. And I kid you not, this little 6-year-old, he looked about 5 or 6, came up, and he was with his parents. He was like, Mama, look, a red panda. And I was like, how does he know what a red panda is?
So many different species.
And I don't. Yeah. And then somebody, I think I was talking to a friend, was like, they made a Pixar movie, Disney movie of a red panda. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
And I hope that capybara is next.
Yeah. Well, and I posted on my Instagram too. I was like, never seen this animal in my life. And probably like 3 or 4 people are like, oh, it's that. And I was like, okay,
chupacabra.
Yeah, that's the New Mexico, my 4 years in New Mexico talking. But I must miss that in the textbook. But so many different animals, so many different points of sustainability, wildlife conservation, preservation. They're redoing their whole middle section right when you walk in of like I think it was the restaurant and stuff. So I missed out on that. But and I keep showing that photo. I took that because sometimes you see a little bit of like a pink on their tush.
And that's what kids ask. Ew,
yes,
what is that? Yeah.
That's why I took the picture because I'm thinking the Houston Zoo is so smart in thinking ahead of what are people going to want to know. And they have a little picture that said, ew, what is that? Because that's your natural reaction to saying there's a little pink on the tush. Yeah. And
what was it?
I want to say it has something to do. Well, let me show you because I've got the picture. Yeah. Okay, so it says, ew, what's that? It's a swelling of the behind. Adult female chimpanzees have an area called estrus swelling. When the female is ready to mate, the area looks like this for an average of 10 days. And it shows you when it's all puffy and pink. And then when it's not puffy and pink, that means they're not ready to mate. Who knew? So next time you see
something you never knew,
a little pink tush on the back of those, on the back of the pink ladies, now you know. Again, I'm 33 years old. I've been to plenty of zoos. I'm learning.
Barely learning.
Now, at 33, what a capybara is, why the tushes on monkeys are pink, how many straws in plastic bags that the zoo is saving on by doing things even such as recycling those plastic gloves. I mean, think about how many plastic gloves they're using with fish and feeding the penguins, those kind of things making every bit of difference.
Yeah. One of the pictures that stood out for me from this slideshow that you shared with us is the giraffes. And in the background, you can see like a skyscraper. Where is this zoo located? It looks huge.
It's quite honestly almost downtown. So I want to say it's just south or southeast of downtown proper. It is right there though. It took me 20 minutes from
That's
my
amazing.
well, actually, I will say it's probably downtown because it's right across the way from the museum district.
Yeah, the museum is near downtown.
Yeah, exactly. That museum district of the Natural Science Museum and the animated arts, I think. Anyways, it's right there. It was probably 20 minutes. Herman Park, I believe, is the name. It's this gigantic grassy area. The zoo is there, and then the whole museum district. So
That's awesome that they can create their enclosures to be so big and look so much like their actual
Yes.
home. That's amazing.
I'm gonna look up just to make sure I'm saying if
Park's
it's
name?
yeah, because I'm like, wait. But I will say it is not out in the middle of nowhere like some of the Herman Park, like some of them are. And I will say the Austin one isn't either. I mean, it's in Southwest Austin.
Yeah.
I drive past it every day on my way home, and it
good
is also
area.
really good. You could do that in a morning, by the way. The Houston Zoo I think is like an all day thing.
It looks huge.
Yeah, the Austin Zoo, if you're thinking, I just need to get the kids out of the house for a morning when it's cooler, I think the Austin Zoo has got a lot of really good stuff. And like I said, it's a little different from your normal like
Zoo.
Houston Zoo. Because it is a special wildlife rescue zoo, which I love even more. You
And
know,
not all of them are like that. So
Not all of them are
be
like
aware of which ones you go to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know they've got, well, the last time I was there, they had the tigers, they had the bears, they had the gigantic tortoises that are crazy huge.
Do they have capybaras?
No, I do not think so because this is the first time I saw that and I was like, what is that rat? Like, I truly thought it was some sort of rodent family.
It probably
and it wasn't.
is, yeah.
It was a capybara, which the more you know.
The more you know. They're cute. Get
They-
the stuffed animal versions.
In a way, they're cute.
Those are
okay,
cute.
yeah. Stuffed animals, yes. Probably even as baby capybaras, I could get behind. But when they're like
Those big ones.
grown, if I just wanted, and I don't remember reading the sign, like where are those naturally found? Like where would
don't
I
even know.
see that walking across the road and be like, oh yeah, like this is a capybara. Next episode of Kristen's Classroom, we're gonna have to figure that
We'll
out.
have to
Where do
dig
you?
into that.
What is the natural habitat of a capybara? I don't know the answer to that.
I will love that topic. Well, we have your article here published on our website already. It's on kxan.com's homepage, and we have all the information, 6,000 animals at the zoo. We also talked about the 49 wildlife conservation projects in 27 countries that they're a part of, and all the beautiful images that you shared with us here today.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all there. If you've got questions, you know where to find me. Happy to answer anything that I can.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on KXAM Plus, Kristen, and we'll see you next week.
Of course, see you then.